We are entering the most transformative economic shift in modern history, no doubt. Artificial intelligence and robotics will change how work happens, how wealth is created, how society organizes itself. But you are not powerless in this transition. You can prepare. You can learn the tools. You can build resilience. You can diversify where you live and how you earn. And most importantly, you can position yourself as someone who's ready to thrive in the age of intelligent machines. I titled this video, "The AI Revolution is Coming," but I probably should have said the AI revolution is here and why off-grid living may matter. If you're new to the channel, my name is Brad Campbell. I live on Kolob Canyons Ranch here. This is a property that we developed from raw land. We have purchased adjacent properties and we rent those out for passive income. We also have other investments. So we have basically gone from Southern California urban living, completely divested from the state of California, sold everything, including my businesses, moved to remote Utah. We have a big solar plant here on our off-grid ranch, and so we're independent of the grid. We don't have electricity that we have to rely on from anyone else. We don't have water that we have to rely on from anyone else. We're working on having food that we grow, but right now we currently source that locally from farms. Why did we do that? And right now we're going through a complete revolution, technological revolution that I think is worth talking about. Now, I'm a guy that usually makes videos about heavy equipment and working on roads and building things here on the ranch, but I think there's a much deeper story and I think we should all be participating in it right now. So that's the purpose of this video today. I mean, for the last 200 years, technology has replaced tools. Think hydraulics. We went from shovels, 100 guys it would take to dig a trench, down the side of the road, to one guy in a backhoe. Absolutely displaced a lot of jobs, and it had a major change in how we think about physical labor. And now we're going through something very similar. And this time it's replacing workers. And the wave isn't just coming gradually, it's exponential. And if you're not familiar with the term singularity, it is basically the snowball effect, or spinning up the flywheel, where self-learning computers and the speed at which AI can improve itself becomes so exponential that we cannot really see over the curve anymore. It's just sort of happening all around us faster than we can process it. So we're entering into a period where artificial intelligence and robotics are improving themselves faster than humans can adapt in traditional ways. So what does that mean to us collectively as a civilization? Factories are already automating. Software is writing itself. Robots are learning to move and see and manipulate objects in the real world. And when these systems combine with massive computing power and agentic AI mixed with quantum computing power and global networks, the results are something that we've never seen before in human history. And Elon Musk calls this the supersonic tsunami of productivity, but it's also a massive wave of job displacement that's already occurring. I see every day articles about huge job losses and layoffs in the technology world. I mean, Amazon and Oracle, Microsoft laying off tens of thousands of people. Now, before anyone panics, let's talk about what this actually means and how to position yourself to thrive in it, because this moment will absolutely create disruption, but it will also create enormous opportunity. And a lot of people still think that AI is something that's coming or eventually happen someday in the future, but the truth is we're already in it. This is happening, and it's happening faster and faster. And like I said, the singularity isn't a light switch that flips on one day, it's an accelerated curve. And that curve has already begun. We are in the singularity. If you're familiar with futurist Ray Kurzweil, he's been saying this for many, many years. And we're absolutely in it. I don't know if you can hear all that creaking. It's a very windy day, and I'm in the barn, and this door is alive. It's just creaking sounds like 1,000 people walking on a squeaky floor. Every month, these models are improving. I used to think that I could catch up on this weekly, but it's daily now. You really have to be paying attention to what's going on. And every month these robotics companies are coming out with new capabilities. You see, Chinese robots that are kickboxing and doing all this crazy stuff, but it's really more about a future workforce that's being developed right in front of our very eyes, which is not necessarily good for us humans. So how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to shift fundamentally things in society in a very short timeline that's going to allow all of this to work without mass civil unrest and just total despair and displacement? Design work, programming, the legal professionals, customer service, they are changing so fast that firms are having to make really dramatic changes and do a lot of research. People are working a lot of overtime hours trying to figure out how this is going to work. Marketing, accounting, even parts of medicine, and certainly in engineering. And the reason this technological shift is different from the previous ones is simple. It's in the past, machines replaced muscle, and now they're replacing cognitive labor. So when both physical and intellectual work become automated at scale, the structure of the economy changes. And that disruption is something that people are beginning to sense. And, I don't think this automatically means collapse. So don't get me wrong. I'm not a doomer. I'm someone who strategically prepares. Strategic resilience is a term that I like to use all the time. I don't like being in the epicenter in dense populated areas because things are too uncertain, and it's just, that's where all the action happens first, and I just don't want to be in the thick of it anymore. I used to love being in the heartbeat of civil society. You want to be in the city, you have to be in the city. I don't feel that anymore. Maybe that's age, I'm sure it is, but a lot of it is just warning signs are everywhere that disruption is imminent of some sort. Now, how it's going to play out in the cities, I don't know yet, but just it's not dystopian warning here. It means massive, very quick transitional outcomes. And if productivity explodes, but human labor becomes less necessary, the next question is very obvious, and that's how do people earn income? And that's why you're suddenly hearing serious conversations about universal basic income, which is essentially a government check that would come to you so that if you lose your job, you can still feed your kids and pay your mortgage and live, without being homeless, really, is what that means. Now, some people have floated the idea of universal basic high income or universal high income, and that would be because productivity is so high, companies are able to generate massive amounts of income, and partnering with governments could provide larger checks. For decades, this has sounded like a fringe idea. It's been floated before, but in a world where AI and robotics, produce most goods and services, some form of income distribution becomes almost unavoidable. And do not read me wrong. This is not because of ideology. I am not of the mindset of socialism or communism works. We've seen those systems fail over and over again for very good reason, and they will always fail. Now, I'm not saying that capitalism is perfect, but it certainly has lasted 250 years in this country. But it's coming as we know it. Consumerism and capitalism is coming to an end as we know it. And it's not because of ideology, again, it's because of the math. So if machines generate enormous wealth, but fewer humans participate in the traditional labor markets, then economic stability requires a mechanism that allows people to access that abundance. So, there's an extremely important issue that doesn't get discussed very often, and that's how these systems are structured. Because if we just sit back and we're not participating in the conversation, it's probably not going to be structured to our advantage. In fact, because of universal basic income that comes with behavioral conditions attached is possible, that would absolutely end freedom as we know it today. So we have to be very careful, and this is something we need to talk about. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments about this. So UBI with attached requirements for behavior is not freedom, it's control. It's total, complete control. And if income can be turned off, based on what you say or what you buy or where you travel or what you believe, then that system becomes a lever of totalitarian power. And history shows us that once systems like that come into existence, they rarely shrink. They may eventually collapse, but who wants to live through decades of absolute misery before they collapse? We've seen this. And if history tells us anything, it tells us that these repeat. These are patterns. So These systems will expand globally. And so if universal basic income becomes part of the future economy, and it very well might be something that's coming very soon, one principle must remain clear, and that is it must be unconditional. So if you're giving people money, you don't tell them how they can spend their money. No spending restrictions, no behavioral scoring, no digital leash. And because, the moment people have to ask for permission to survive, dignity will completely evaporate and freedom disappears and innovation disappears with it. Yes, there will be displacement. We're seeing it already, but there will also be an explosion of human leverage. And for the first time in history, one person with AI tools would be able to operate like an entire company. Think about that. I mean, one person will be able to design products, write software, run marketing campaigns, produce media, coordinate logistics, and manage operations, all with an AI assistant. We're seeing people already diving on this opportunity now, probably somewhat recklessly, but they are. In other words, the productivity of the individual human being is about to increase dramatically. I know that I use it every single day for multiple different aspects of my life, and I'm learning and experimenting with these tools. I'm not giving it my bank account number. I'm not giving it any access to anything that could be abused yet because I don't trust it, but I am experimenting with it, and I'm certainly listening to every smart developer out there, and the people that are developing all these AI systems are talking about the pros, cons, and the security vulnerabilities. But people who thrive in this new era won't be the ones resisting the technology. You can't resist this at this point. So if you're someone who doesn't like what I'm saying and you want to resist it, go ahead, but you're just going to get run over. Just like everyone that didn't want to be involved with computers or digital phones or any of the other technology. When we went from horses to cars, I mean, people resisted that. I'm sure they were stubborn people riding horses around, causing traffic jams and horses crapping all over the roads, and eventually they just succumb to the pressure, and you will too eventually. So might as well embrace it early. Learn the tools, experiment with them. Look, if you work for an employer, position yourself in the company as someone who's proactively exploring how AI can help your organization thrive. I mean, and if you work with clients, if you own your own business, help them understand how these technologies can make them stronger and more competitive. In a rapidly changing world like this, the most valuable people are the ones that help others navigate change. People probably thought I was crazy to pack up and completely divest from large urban core. But when large numbers of people feel economically displaced, history shows us that this very obvious that urban centers become the pressure points. Cities concentrate economic anxiety, political tension, and the fragile infrastructure, generally is stretched to the max, whether that's water, electricity, the road systems, and food distribution. That doesn't mean that cities are doomed. I really don't want to sound like a doomer. I'm just saying that it does mean having options outside dense urban core is one of the smartest forms of resiliency that you can build. So that might entail owning land or having access to land if your parents or somebody has a farm. Building relationships in smaller communities, going out there, spending time, developing the ability to operate outside of the fragile systems. I don't think this is paranoia. I think this is strategic resilience. And in an AI-driven world where more work happens digitally and remotely, then geography becomes a lot less important and a lot more flexible. I think some companies are trying to bring people back into the workplace, but a lot of them just can't resist the allure of good employees that refuse to live in the city. But I do think it's one of the smartest moves that many people can make, and that is diversity of your location risk. If productivity explodes, humanity could enter an era of extreme abundance, less drudgery. As my example was earlier, people with shovels, it would take a week to dig a trench down the side of the highway when one guy in a backhoe can do that in a few hours. Well, it's just like that now, but with cognitive work. So, more creativity, more time for family, time for exploration and innovation. This could be a really positive thing if we collectively do this the right way. And I think it's really important that we're all at the table and having something to say about it, because if you sit back and relax and think that the people that are gaining all of this power due to AI have your best interests in mind, you're sorely mistaken. So the real question isn't whether the technology will advance. It will, and it is, exponentially. The real question is whether the systems that we build around it preserve freedom, dignity, and opportunity. That's a decision that societies are going to have to make. You and me together, having conversations in the comments below and with our families over the dinner table. So here's the reality. We are entering the most transformative economic shift in modern history, no doubt. Artificial intelligence and robotics will change how work happens, how wealth is created, how society organizes itself. But you are not powerless in this transition. You can prepare. You can learn the tools. You can build resilience. You can diversify where you live and how you earn. And most importantly, you can position yourself as someone who's ready to thrive in the age of intelligent machines. Because the future isn't something that just happens to us. We have a say, and we can help shape how things turn out in conversations, in the comments below, with your family. And the people who understand that early are the ones who will lead the next era.